You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. You're listening to episode 80. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and as usual, I am co-hosting with Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. All right, guys, off the top, I know our podcast spends the least time talking about football cards out of all the 4 major professional sports, and maybe it's because we're based in Canada, but with most of our listeners and subscribers from the States, I think we got to talk a little football today, especially with the 2022-23 season starting the week of this recording. So, 2 questions. First, who's your pick to win the Super Bowl? And 2, are there any players you're particularly high on and, might be a good sports card investment for this upcoming season, in your opinion? So first, the Super Bowl question.
I don't know if, our history shows that we're the right people to ask, but I'm gonna go.
I can't remember.
I'm going Green Bay.
Okay.
I think.
I feel like you went at Green Bay last year, didn't you?
Maybe, but I think
we'll check.
I think Aaron Rodgers is super underrated still. I don't think you're gonna see like a super bump in his price unless Super Bowl's in contention, but I think like overall, like long-term investment, I still think he's underrated. There's nothing really between kind of like that Mahomes and Brady, right? So yeah. I would say he fits the bill. But yeah, I know. Okay. I don't know. It's tough with football because you got all these young quarterbacks that I think there are some good opportunities, but I personally think they're bad investments. So like I'm just staying off of football just in general, but yeah.
All right.
Oh man, Hyung took my pick. I was gonna say Green Bay too. There's something about Green Bay. I don't know, man. Like I'll pick somebody else just for the sake of picking someone else. But I was just feeling like I think this year, Green Bay fans have been subject, very similar to the Leaf fans, man. They've been subject to disappointment after disappointment. Similar disappointments. So I think there's something about it. I think this year might be the year for them. But for the sake of choosing somebody else, you know what? I'm going to pick a bit of an underdog. I'm going to pick Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson at the helm, a vet quarterback. I think it's a different look for them for the first time in a while. Plus, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but there's something about the Broncos too. I think they could surprise. So we're gonna go with the Broncos.
Yeah. Well, I've heard from reports from Broncos camps that everyone's gelling at Denver there. So yeah, people are high on Russell, bringing in new culture, that kind of thing. So you might be right. It is a dark horse, I think. And you did say Green Bay was your first choice. I think just looking at the odds, Green Bay I think has the 4th best odds of winning.
More favored
within the top 5. So yeah, you're not going off on a huge limb there. We talked about Josh Allen and, in last week's episode, I believe, or the week before that. And we said the Buffalo Bills are actually favored to win the Super Bowl this year. And I think that's still the case going into the season. The Bills are not my pick. I just, I don't know if it's because they're so close to us here in Toronto and they've disappointed a lot of Toronto fans like Buffalo just because
it's our home team.
Yeah, we adopted them as our home team. But I'm going with the KC Chiefs. Okay. I just think Mahomes is, a little underrated this going into the season. Everyone talks about him losing Tyreek as a wide receiver. That was a huge weapon, but I still think the best player on that team is Mahomes. And I think his offensive line is better, so he'll definitely have more time to throw the ball. And I think Bill Simmons on his podcast, I agree with him 100% when he says like the most dangerous weapon for KC Chiefs is Mahomes with time. And I think it doesn't matter who he's throwing to at that point. So
I think with Mahomes, the thing I worry about his prices just based off where they were, like it's like I agree, like the schedule's not easy, but if he does pull it off, I think there's huge opportunity for his cards. Sure. But that's the thing. It's if he doesn't, I could see it retracting even more than. Yep. And so I like Mahomes, but it's just from an investment standpoint, I just feel like it's like that. If it's a little cheaper, I don't mind going in, but it's starting to get there, I think, and especially with the season. Come to a hype. If he comes out, pretty guns blazing, I think his prices might, get back to somewhat of a positive trend. But
I'm all in. I'm all in on Mahomes. That's my guy. I'm just Johnny and I were eyeing that Opticala.
I know. I was almost ready looking right before the show too. It's under 2,000. I think one sold for today. Man. Or was it yesterday? Jeez. So it's that's good. That's a good price. I don't know how lower it's gonna go, but that's
well, you can imagine. Let's say the Chiefs have an awful season and they miss the playoffs. Like, what's gonna happen to Mahomes cards then, right? I think Hyung is right about that, and that there's definitely room to come down. So
kind of reminds me of Luka a bit, like
true.
The whole Luka trend, like it's like, but then. Yeah, I guess the only difference is Mahomes has a little more stability in his career and his accolades. Sure. But other than that, like it's very, very similar stories with Luka and Mahomes in terms of hobby. Yeah.
I can see that. Well, speaking of which, how about you guys? Do you have any players that you're kind of high on or looking forward to watching?
You know what? I mean, obviously, I would love to see Mahomes do special things. I think the game of football needs kind of like that next torchbearer, and he's the guy. So for the sake of football, I'd love to see the young studs do well. The Josh Allens. I think between Herbert and Burrow, you got some young studs, and likelihood that all is going to pan out to be Hall of Fame quarterbacks, probably not, but maybe a couple of those have positive trajectory there. So I mean it's exciting, but I'm rooting for kind of like the vets at this point, because I think we get so clouded with the young studs that even like guys like Lamar Jackson. I think there's a lot of underrated players that
I like
even
that pick for sure.
Dak Prescott. I think undervalued at some point. From a card perspective, I think younger guys like Jalen Hurts, probably have like good opportunity from a card perspective because they're so cheap. But
Okay. How about you, John?
I have my favorites, right? I thoroughly enjoyed watching Mahomes and Josh Allen go at it. So those two guys right off the bat, pretty excited about watching. And I'm gonna go with some of the old hoagies, man. I'm excited to watch Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers back at it again. I think those are probably the four players that I'm kind of looking to pay attention to and watch.
All good choices. You guys already mentioned the ones I'm looking forward to, Mahomes and Lamar especially. I think he can do something real special this season with Baltimore being a better team. So we'll see who's right with our picks after the Super Bowl in early 2023. Hopefully it'll be better than my NBA pick last year when I predicted, if you guys remember, the Lakers were going to win it all.
rough year for the Lakers.
So that was bad. That was a bad pick. But we'll do the NBA pick next month, and we'll do the NHL pick next month when that season starts. All right, let's quickly move on to hobby headlines. So for this episode, we just talked about the NFL season about to begin, but next month we also got basketball and hockey starting up as well. So in anticipation of that, I thought we could talk about what kind of in-season moves we're looking to make for any or all of these three sports. So maybe to start off the discussion, I'll ask first, is there any player you think might have a breakout season? And so I ask this because the play might be to buy them now or early in the season and then flip later in the season when they're performing well. So any players kind of jump at you? Any of these three sports?
I mean, for football, I mentioned guys like Jalen Hurts. I think he's the type of guy that, you know, has a lot of opportunity from a card perspective. Yeah. Guys like even Tua on Miami, if he comes out hot, you know, I think his cards have great opportunity. Basketball wise, guys like Donovan Mitchell, new team, new offense, you know, contender
with the Cavs.
I think there's based on prices that they were pretty cheap to begin with, right? So those are kind of people. If I'm looking short term, I'd probably look into. But I think for me, like, I'm looking at it as more of a, okay, like, even you're always going to be swimming against the wave right now, right? So it's like, it's tough to, you know, play that short-term game saying, you know what, I expect this card to, and it's essentially from an investment standpoint, I'm looking more of a, okay, while things go on sale here, you know, where's the deals at? So that's why I brought up guys like Aaron Rodgers from an investment standpoint. I think he might be kind of like my play, but in terms of if you're looking for short term, you know, swimming against the wave and trying to make a profit, then you know those might be kind of good options, I guess. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point you make. You're kind of swinging and hoping to hit. Right. And I mean, some guys are pretty cheap where it's not. You know, but that's where you get into the, you know, even the Josh Allen, the Burrow, the Herbert territory, right? It's like, man, prices are expecting them to, you know, all win the Super Bowl. So it's kind of like somebody's going to be right, I guess. No, that's true.
Yeah. Well, you know, if we're going to talk breakout, being the resident hockey guy, I'll speak to hockey. And I guess this would apply somewhat to sports cards and even apply to fantasy, but breakout generally, I mean, you don't really talk about veterans, you talk about breakout, you're usually looking at the young guys. So I'm going to say Ottawa Senators. We're going to go with Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. I think Ottawa seriously loaded up with some vets like Alex DeBrincat and Claude Giroux, and their top six is looking pretty nice. So even by association, I think Tkachuk and Stützle are going to have a breakout season, numbers-wise. So they're guys to look at in cards. They're guys to look at if you do hockey fantasy. I really like Matt Boldy, who's a youngster on Minnesota Wild. He's a rookie last year. He's a high draft pick for them. I don't believe he has a card yet, so I'm going to assume his Young Guns is going to come out in Series 1. Pretty sure he's probably going to be one of the Chase cards. But Matt Boldy, I think, is one to look out for. And then a sort of a dark horse pick. I really like Seth Jarvis. He's a rookie last year on the Carolina Hurricanes. He started off pretty slow, but the fact that he made the team and he's a first round pick, like mid-roundish, like high mid-round, like 12th or 13th pick or something like that. And he started to catch fire. The last 15, 20 games, if you look at his stats, he caught fire and he was playing with Sebastian Aho. I think he was playing with Teuvo Teravainen. So I could see Seth Jarvis being a bit of a dark horse pick for both fantasy and sports cards. And I think his Young Guns just came out. Upper Deck released like an extended series. I don't know if they've ever done that before, but it was kind of like Topps update. So they released Series 1, Series 2, and then they went with an extended series, which makes me laugh a bit. It feels like a bit of a money grab. But Seth Jarvis's Young Guns, I don't know if it's that expensive. I don't believe it is, but it's in there. So just something to watch out for in terms of like a short-term investment.
Okay, nice. Yeah, always appreciate the hockey perspective from Johnny. You know, we certainly could use more of that. And I was writing some of those names down, so I'm ready. I'm ready for the NHL season coming up. For me, for this question, you know, I just focused on basketball, and the two guys I chose is like, it's always like when the new season starts, everyone likes to focus on the new prospects or the new rookies coming up, right? The draft class that just got drafted. And what I love to do is always look at the previous draft class, you know, where prices usually drop because the attention is all of a sudden off of them, but they're still good players. You know what I mean? So I'm talking about guys like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley. If you look at their silver prisms, it's surprisingly cheap. You know, like you expect it to be a lot higher. You know, LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, they're kind of a different tier, so they're actually haven't gone down that much. But like for whatever reason, last year's draft class just not as much respect. So Cade, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, our boy, you know, even his cards are, you know, relatively affordable. So, you know, do I think they can make the next step in the second season? I think they certainly have the potential. All three of those ones that I mentioned, I'm pretty high on. So if I'm trying to play the short game, I'm looking for those guys because, you know, they got their first year experience. And I just believe, like, you know, Cade Cunningham is going to be playing with Jaden Ivey. That's going to be an exciting Detroit Pistons team to watch. A young core, you know. Right. And Mobley just added, you know, we talked about Donovan Mitchell. Like the Cavs are legit contenders all of a sudden. And I think you know, I'm pretty high on Mobley too. And you know, it's a biased pick, Scotty Barnes. I don't know what to expect this year for the Raptors, to tell you the truth. But, you know, we all say here, we all trusted Masai. so go Raptors go. But yeah, I love what, you know, looking at the prospects from the year before. Yeah. It's always a good play.
To add to that, I personally really like Jalen Green. He's not a, you know, a hidden talent or anything, but he is the type of player that is, I mean, sure. If you followed him towards the garbage minutes at the end of the season, I think the last 10 games he was dropping like 30 plus a night consistently. So he's just the kind of kid that can get you out of your seat. He's the type of kid that could drop like 35 points 5 games in a row, things that can really get noticed. So I like Jalen Green. I don't think his cards are super cheap. I'm sure people are on it. And I really like Josh Giddey, man. I think he's a big one. I think he's going to be big in both fantasy and sports cards. I think he's going to be like a nightly triple double threat. Really like him. He needs to fix his jumper a little bit, but besides that, I think he's a threat.
I was pretty high on Giddey too, but that Chet Holmgren injury, brutal, so brutal. They could use an extra weapon there. All right, so next question. Conversely, is there a player that you think might take a significant hit in value this season? So the play here would be to move them now or early in the season so that you can reinvest that cash in players you believe in more.
Ooh. Yeah, I would go back to football, to be honest. You know, I mean,
Trey Lance.
We just, you know what though, Trey Lance can it can go either way because he's pretty cheap, right?
Whatever he wants, yeah.
Yeah. It's the ones that are overpriced I'm worried about. You know,
Trey Lance.
yeah. But he's still on the cusp of, like, it could go any way because the pricing's so low. But more so like the Herberts, the Burrows, you know, even might I say Josh Allen. I know we talked about that silver Allen
for sure.
How rare the silver, that was it a hollow or
silver prism?
Silver prism. Yeah, it was like really super low pop, and we got a comment saying that, you know, the print run was super low apparently. So I don't think prices will be affected that much on cards like that. But in general, I think, you know, guys like Josh Allen, you know, Herbert, Burrow, even, you know, those younger quarterbacks, even Mahomes at a point, you know, he's on that mid tier where I'm like, okay, at least Mahomes has some hardware, you know, he's establishing that great career. Right. So it's like, other than that, those pricing, I think is baked in. It's similar how we've seen it with Luka, you know, Trae Young and the Tatums, you know, in 2018, right. we see that peak of these young studs, and look at what happened to, you know, Tatum. Mitchell, I guess, follows in that category. All these guys that are kind of like studs, right. But, you know, it's not really taken off because they're kind of at that lull period. So.
Yeah.
Right. I'm with you. I think football is going to be the big one because it's hyped right now. And, you know, when I look at pricing, I was thinking about this on the train ride the other day, thinking about sports cards and each, within each sport. And I think it's clear soccer and basketball, because it has such an international presence, could be the bigger of all the sports to come. But football is up there, even though it's not necessarily supremely international. But I feel like football, based on, clearly supply and demand, low number of games, but football fans in general, I think, are just the most hardcore and the most willing to just spend money on football, paraphernalia, memorabilia, Sunday, drinking beers, what you name it. It's like football is life. Like, you go all out for football. So there's something about sports cards and football, I think, same with the collectors. They're willing to just go all in with their money, and it shows, because like football, of all the sports cards, shows so much volatility, which investors like, because it just keeps going up. The ebbs and flows are so much more pronounced than any other sports. So I think football is the one to kind of highlight it if we're going to talk potential and also downfall. And a person that I don't know, it just keeps coming back to me, is Joe Burrow. I will say the one thing going for him, he's got the flashy, like he's kind of got that like Tatis swag, like the Tatis sex appeal. So I get it. That part he's got going for him, but he kind of reminds me of like Eli Manning. Like, he's just not, I don't feel like when all is said and done, he won't be like the upper echelon, like Brady, like those supreme, like Peyton Manning, all-time quarterbacks. But he can be the kind of guy that just, big game moments, he gets it done. He can have a crap season, but he makes the playoffs, and big game moments, he gets it done. So I think I could see Burrow possibly struggling this season, like maybe not having, like a amazing QB ratings, probably having some tough games, maybe taking a bunch of losses. Even when he wins, maybe not having greatest of games, but maybe making playoffs and then kind of coming out and showing what he's got. So something about Burrow kind of reminds me of Eli Manning. Nothing spectacular numbers wise, but just the type of quarterback that gets it done when it counts. So I could see a guy like him to start the season, if he struggles out of the gate, like first 5-6 games, the price for him really correcting.
Some Cincy fans are going to be really upset that you compared him to Eli Manning.
Who's this guy? He doesn't even know he's talking about it.
But I think it's a hot take. I personally think.
Yeah, you're big on Burrow, I know.
I love Burrow. I think he can do it again. And I you know what? But you're not the only one, John, to be fair, that thinks, like Burrow might take a step back, because, no one expected the Bengals to get to the Super Bowl this year. Yeah. And, so that's a fair comment. But I think their team got better, actually. Maybe not significantly, but like they have the experience under their belt. I'm a huge believer of, knocking on the door and then coming back with a vengeance, and just knowing what to expect the next time around. So I think since he's going to be a good team, I just trust Burrow. I love the swag, and more than that, just the confidence, like he's like, I think I mentioned this before. After the Super Bowl lost, it just seemed like, he's just going to go home and just chill. Like, he's like, I'll probably be back next year anyway. So, but, it's funny that we're focusing on football for this question. Maybe it's because of all the hype leading up to the start of the season.
Yeah.
And honestly, the biggest hype is, in my opinion, the hobby is Josh Allen. Everyone's on Josh Allen. The Super Bowl favorites, apparently. Yeah. I still can't believe it, and I'm not doubting his talent. Allen is the real deal, but prices are just so high on Allen. He has to essentially guarantee his team to win the Super Bowl, like you said, Hyung, right?
Like Patrick Mahomes a couple years ago.
Exactly. And the other guy, Trey Lance, I'm sure he's a good player, but the Niners are one of the better teams going into this season. And I don't know. I think he's going to be a rookie QB. I think he's going to make some rookie mistakes, but the hype of Trey Lance is unreal. He's on my feed all the time. There's listings, auctions going off left, right, and center, and he's going for big prices. And so I think Trey Lance, if I had him, I'd be selling and then reinvesting in a guy like Mahomes, to tell you the truth. But hope Lance proves me wrong. Like, I would never root against these guys. I love young QBs doing their thing, and just hope for the best. But I don't know if I'm gonna play odds. I'm selling right now while the price is high. All right. A more general question about the three sports, football, basketball, and hockey. Is there one you're focusing on more this season? Whether it's because you see one sport has just a little more potential to make profit, or for any other reason?
For me, like I said, my strategy is kind of like during this, bear market, I'm looking for the deals of kind of like longer term investments that, I don't want to sell, I want to just add to my collection. So I'm honing in on guys like, I think Ovechkin in hockey, like his super or his Future Watch auto, I think is very, reasonable compared to, guys like Connor McDavid and stuff like that. So, I think if it's well priced, I think, landing a card of that magnitude in hockey is a good long-term investment and kind of like the investment I'm looking for. And also, guys like LeBron James, I think this past year, his cards took a huge hit. And I know Johnny's favorite player here we're talking about, but
LeBron.
Yeah, LeBum. I think he's still, his cards, retracted to kind of like a reasonable price now where you could grab, things that weren't affordable. Right. So it's before he does, adds on to his accolades, you never know with LeBron, right? Like he still looks like he could play a bit. So I think a good time maybe to buy, into someone like LeBron during this downturn of the economy. So looking more long-term strategy. Like I said earlier on the show, I'm not really into that flipping mode, like especially on a bear market, but I mean, there are opportunities though, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I think generally speaking, basketball and soccer within the next little while, if this bear market starts to turn in the other direction, which I feel like all markets in general have kind of flattened out, and we're in a good period where we could start seeing some rebound. So basketball and soccer having such a international spotlight, I think basketball in particular, it got so hot and the correction was so severe. Maybe there was we could even argue a bit of overcorrection for basketball in the wrong direction. So I could see basketball really recovering. So I like basketball generally speaking. Soccer too, obviously, because of World Cup coming up. But for me in specific, and this is just specific to me personally, I've been looking at a lot of hockey, and that's because I've started to realize my style of collecting is not as much selling, but I mean my Instagram account name says it. Like I enjoy trading the most, right? And the three of us, we haven't really traveled outside of Toronto. So most of our trading does happen at card shows in Toronto. So it only makes sense if you're in a particular zone. For those down south, maybe football is a big one, obviously. But for us up here in the north, hockey's big. And I know hockey the best. And I haven't been eating my own advice of saying collect not only what you love, but also collect things that, invest in what you know the most. And I have been doing that. So I have been particularly interested in picking up a lot more hockey than I usually do.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice too. And you're absolutely right about these local card shows here in Toronto. Like after the last one, I'm like, I need more hockey cards so I can trade up. There was one booth where I had my Bo Bichette refractor auto at one time before I traded it earlier this season. And I was desperately trying to get a Mitch Marner, like a hockey card, so I'm like, I could flip this somewhere else, but he wouldn't go for it. So yeah, so my hockey stash is pretty low right now still. But that's good advice. We talked about how we all love Future Watch autos too. So there's an opportunity there. For me, I'm actually focusing on basketball a lot these days. For the reason you mentioned, John, like I think it's just overcorrected and it was so hot like 2-3 years ago that was crazy to even try to get good cards. Like Luka, for example, I think Leon last week mentioned that he was selling it at 7-8K for Silver Prism
Crazy.
PSA 10, right? And then, at that time we're like, oh, I guess I'll never own a Luka Silver Prism PSA 10. And I bought one at like 2,300. So it's hovering around 2,000 right now, right? So, I'm around the ballpark, but like it's kind of cool that I could actually get one now because it's come down to a level where I'm comfortable paying that amount. So I think there's opportunities still. And like you mentioned, Hyung, like LeBron, if you could scrounge out 5-6K, like, for a LeBron rookie, like, and you hold long term, I think that's almost a no-brainer for me anyway. Top 2 player, according to then maybe not 1, but maybe number 2 for a lot of people. John would know, but there's too much hate on LeBron. Like, he's gonna be cemented as one of the GOATs, right? I respect LeBron. But yeah, basketball in general, I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm looking there for some good deals right now. All right, last question for this segment. Just to be a little bit more specific this time, is there any particular set, that comes out every year that you look forward to either buying a box or even taking part in a break?
Oh yeah, it's Topps Chrome season, and then you have right? Some rookie studs in that class. So I'm always looking forward to Topps Chrome Sapphire. There's Bowman Draft, Bowman Chrome maybe. I think I don't know if it released yet. I've honestly,
coming soon, right?
What's that? It should be soon. So there's a lot of good sets coming out. Even Topps Update, I think there might be a few rookies to chase there. So definitely always looking forward to new sets, and want to even start a segment, Clark, and doing some more content of just ripping boxes. Just that's the excuse to rip boxes. Yeah. It's like should we rip this box? It's always going to be no until we do hit something. But we'll film it.
But if we're doing it for the content, it's a win-win, right?
It's your marketing spend. So
I love it.
I'm surprisingly Topps Chrome. Obviously, I think it's a big year, and our little group has our Topps Chrome yearly rip, so I'm looking forward to that. Aside from that, I'm actually looking forward to non-sports. We mentioned it before, the Stranger Things Fanatics. I'm very interested in that for some reason. I think just as a fan, and then the news about Disney releasing like a series 1. I'm interested in that too, like a first edition. So I'd be in on Fanatic, the Stranger Things, and I'd be in on the Disney first edition release. Both as a fan and maybe not so much investing, but just for the sake of ripping and having fun. I think, for some reason, I'm oddly looking forward to that.
Okay. We'll do another separate episode on non-sports cards. And, when that product comes out, maybe we could rip that and see what we get. I'm a big fan of Stranger Things too. So, I'm totally with you.
And I will rip a box.
Let's do it. We'll go to Integrity HQ and just film everything there. For me, we talked about SB Authentic, right? That finally came out, and that's where the Feature Watch autos come out of, and like everyone's chasing Kaprizov. Yeah, that's how you say it, Kaprizov. I remember from last time. And when it first came out, like we're like, oh, this is too expensive, and you might as well just buy singles. But I feel like they're slowly coming down. Looking at it's like 330 now. I think it was like 500 before. So I'll keep an eye. If it comes down even a little bit further, it might be a fun rip. To your point, hockey being the number one sports car market here in Canada, at least. Although we all like different sports, but that's something I'm keeping an eye on. And of course, baseball's always number one for me. So Bowman Chrome, when it comes out, that'll be a fun rip as well. Nothing really changes. Like I feel like with box breaks, it's almost like whatever you like best year after year, you always have to get the latest one and just hope for the best in terms of hitting. But I hope that helped some of our listeners, subscribers, with the 3 major sports coming on TV soon. There's going to be a lot of plays to make, and I think it'll do something for the hobby. It's kind of the bear market, but I feel like when sports comes back on TV, I think people get excited about sports cards too. It's very closely linked.
Yeah.
And a lot of moves you can make during the season for sure. All right. With that, let's move on to a new segment that we have for this episode that we're calling More Likely To. Okay, so for this segment, I'm going to start each sentence with more likely to, and then end it with a choice that you'll have to make out of the options I give you. All right, so it'll make sense once we get rolling. First one, more likely to see a bump in card value this season. All right, and the choices are, this is basketball, Donovan Mitchell, who just got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, his rookie cards versus Trae Young rookie cards.
Man,
who we always say gets no love in the hobby.
No love, and I'm afraid that it's gonna be similar with Trae. It's like he could score 32, 35 points a night. It doesn't matter. Especially he's gonna actually have less ball time as well. So you got DeJounte Murray. So we'll see how that goes. Yep. So I think there's more opportunity in Donovan Mitchell actually with getting out of Utah, going to a contending team in Cleveland. His prices, I checked before, Optic Hollow selling at $200. I'm just like, yeah, that's a PSA 10, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in general. Mind you, Trae Young's price, Optic Hollow, is down to like 300, 350 as well.
Too,
yeah. So like they're both cheap, but in this case, I think I've seen the history of Trae Young cards. Something about it. I think he's gonna get the respect way down the road. I think he still has he has to win, and Atlanta was in the right direction last year, so we'll see where it takes him. So, but I'm gonna say Donovan Mitchell. It's more likely to see a bump in Donovan Mitchell's cards this year.
Donovan.
I'm going opposite. I'm going Trae Young. Like, I think Donovan Mitchell's bump happened now, and I think that's the bump. I don't Donovan Mitchell is he's in that middle zone. He is dead in that veteran, you need to win or it's not going up. So I can actually see Donovan Mitchell's price is probably going down during the season. If you're going to invest in Cavaliers, I think the players that are going to receive a bump are his running mates, Garland and Mobley, over him. So I think the Mitchell, he's right now at the point where it's like literally he has to win at least MVP, which probably not unlikely to happen for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, or he's just got to win a championship. So it's going to be one or the other. For Trae Young, he is on the cusp of getting into that veteran, that mid-level pack, but he's not there yet. I think Trae Young still has, as his prices came down a lot, and he still has that hype. He's still the type of guy, he could drop 50 points 2 nights in a row with like long-range threes and just ignite, the interest in him again. He still has that, and I think the market would be willing to jump on that for a guy like Trae Young versus Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell drops 50 points, I think people are going to be like, all right, great, but that's not a championship, right? But Trae Young, I think he can still have eyes to see that volatility, so I'm going Trae Young.
Sure. All right, I'm the tiebreaker. I'm giving Trae Young one more year. One more year. I might have said that last year, but this year for real. I mean, come on. The disrespect has just...
Too much,
guys. Come on.
I agree. Like, he's a buy.
Yeah. Like, too much.
Now he's
I'm saying this. I don't own any Trae Young cards, and I'm still saying Trae Young.
Yeah, I have a Silver Prism PSA 10, but which I upgraded from a PSA 9, which I sold low on. But and our buddy Andrew, I'm sure he's gonna not like the Trae Young take. He's been burned a few times by Trae Young
court sides.
those base court sides are not doing him any favors. But I'm siding with John. I think he's just got the potential. Can he drop 50-point games? Yeah, I believe that more than Donovan Mitchell doing that on the Cavs. And I think Mitchell is a great pickup for the Cavs, but he's part of a bigger team. He's not the guy, I think it's well balanced actually. Whereas I believe DeJounte Murray helps Trae Young, like everyone won't just be on Trey defending him, they got to worry about Murray too. And I think that'll give him a little bit of space, and we'll see some big games from Trey as a result. So that's what I'm banking on. But one more year, Trey. Come on. Let's do it. All right. More likely to, the other way, see a significant drop in value this season. We talked about him before. In football, Josh Allen rookie cards or Trevor Lawrence rookie cards, which have been getting a lot of bump these days.
Jeez. Oh. Significant drop. Okay, this is a tough one because I might say Josh Allen. I think it's so high that it can only go one way. Like I don't see, like, what does he have to do to get a bump in his prices? His price is already acting like he's in the Hall of Fame, like. So I mean I know Trevor Lawrence, there was a bit of hype around him, but I don't think his prices are astronomical as kind of like that Zion hype of, the first pick overall and stuff like that. So I think I'm not a huge fan of Trevor Lawrence, to be honest, nor will I buy into his cards, but I think his cards actually have a chance at growing because it's that, it's in that young hype period still, whereas Josh Allen's cards are inflated already. It's no different than Mahomes. It's like Mahomes have to win a Super Bowl for his cards to sustain or, increase in value. Otherwise, his prices are going to drop. And Mahomes' prices, we've seen what happens. And, he's established a lot more than Josh Allen. So for me, I'm going to say Josh Allen drops significantly.
Yeah, I can see that reasoning.
So when I saw this question, I had an immediate pick in mind. But I can now see there's a little bit more depth to Clark's question. And as I've been thinking, so my immediate pick was Josh Allen because we've been talking about Josh Allen. But I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence. And Josh Allen seemingly is the easy pick. But Trevor Lawrence, when you look at his cards, I mean, they're more affordable, yes. But his cards have been selling. And people have been on a lot of Trevor Lawrence, right? And I think it's because they are a bit affordable and he is a first pick overall. And I think people are expecting like a rebound. It's like an amazing opportunity for a huge buy low that can absolutely explode. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that explosion. Like, I don't think Jacksonville is set to be maybe slightly better than last year. But I don't think they're set to light the world on fire or anything. So I think it might come this whole, like, everybody kind of jumping on Trevor Lawrence. He's been like getting ripped, all of this like NT and all this stuff that's been coming out. Like, there's a lot of like rehype in terms of like the chase. And I think a lot of that is going to simmer down when the season actually starts, and perhaps he struggles again in his second year. So I could see his cards really simmering down. Whereas Josh Allen, I mean, the Bills, I would assume, let's hope, but I think they're going to probably be pretty solid. They're Super Bowl favorites for a reason. And I could see Josh Allen, it'll go through its normal sort of like mid-season lull and stuff like all cards would kind of go through. But I could see Josh Allen's cards being relatively stable until he's in the playoffs and about to prove that he's going to win something. So I could see Josh Allen being stable. It is risky because you're buying on an absolute high, but Trevor Lawrence, I could see a more significant drop happening than Josh Allen. So Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Man, I think it's John and I just bullying up on Hyung because I'm going Trevor Lawrence as well. So for that, and I thought for sure Johnny would go Josh Allen actually, and I was going like, okay, I'm going to break this tie.
Yeah, you guys are going against your principles.
yeah. But this question was really for that reason. Like, Josh Allen prices are extremely high, and therefore, yes, I can see how it could be a significant drop in value, right? If he doesn't win the Super Bowl, if they don't make the playoffs, significant drop in value, right? But I don't know, the likelihood of them not making the playoffs, like they just have too good of a team. I think that's inevitable that they're going to make it. But for Trevor Lawrence, it's about talent. Like, yeah, sure he has talent, but if he has another season like last year, like that's 2 seasons in a row that's mediocre, playing on a very mediocre team, right? And how much patience do hobbyists or fans have? Like to your point, John, people are expecting that rebound. Like, oh, he has too much talent to just be average. And the Jaguars are a bit better, arguably. But yeah, if you look at their odds, they're still near the bottom. Like, they're not going to, make a run for the playoffs. No, I don't think anyone expects that. So if he has another average season, which might not be completely his fault, I could see just people dumping his cards at the end of the season and just not having that patience. Who's going to think that in his third year he's going to turn the corner? Right. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be a new crop of fresh young QBs coming in, and then Lawrence is another QB. So yeah, we'll see. Lawrence could definitely take a step up, but I think talent-wise, Josh Allen will play well, and his prices might drop down a little bit because it's so high right now. But yeah, if Trevor Lawrence has another average season, I could see that just 50% of what it is now, to tell you the truth. All right, more likely to be a better investment, and this is more general: hockey cards versus soccer cards.
I'm gonna go hockey cards. Wow. I think there's just a richer history there. But then you could go vintage soccer and it's astronomical too, right? So but I just think there's a lot more opportunity, at least in the way I see it. Soccer's still up in there. I don't necessarily see the volume that I was expecting soccer to kind of take. So I do see the volume with hockey cards, and I see the bump in pricing on the big boys. So you have definitely crossover investors coming into the space now with like the McDavids and the Ovechkins. Sure. and the goats, right? So I think there's just a lot more play in the goat game with hockey as well. So I'm gonna go stick with the classic hockey cards over soccer. Yeah.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Now that I've been kind of thinking, especially after Hyung spoke, I think he does make a bit of a point that hockey cards, because we're talking cards, right? We're not talking memorabilia. We're not talking the sports in general. No question, soccer has like the international appeal, but hockey cards have been a thing forever. Soccer cards have not, right? So that rich history is there. With that being said, I hate to go against hockey because I love hockey, but I think soccer is still just touching the surface of how huge it can become. Because soccer is not only international, but kind of like F1, like how Hyung, I'm a bit more pessimistic, but Hyung, always said F1's market and the people really into F1 are people with a lot of money, and soccer, there are tons of fans in Europe, like big money players that are into soccer. But the real question is, will sports cards ever really blow up in European and South American markets, right? So that's the bigger question at large from a macro level. So I think soccer cards, who knows if it may not, as much as we're all predicting it to happen, it may never happen. Let's be real. But I'm still going to go with that potential, because if it does tap in, I think soccer cards is going to be the biggest of all the sports. So soccer's got that potential. So I'm going to pick soccer, but I do love hockey. There is, I could see this question being like I could see the reason why I would go 50-50.
All right. Can't believe you turned your back on hockey, John. I'm actually going to go hockey this time, because I think from a business perspective, most of the trading card action is still in North America, right? Like, from what I hear, if you're a buyer or seller overseas, it's still difficult to do that, like shipping costs, and most of the buyers still being in the United States or even in Canada too, right? Like it's easier for us, for instance, for Canadians to buy in the US because we're a lot closer. Right. And I think as an investment, like there's a larger pool of buyers still here in North America. And for soccer, in my opinion, to be the better investment, you need more North American collectors and investors to be into soccer, rather than
makes sense.
Just seeing as an soccer is for sure an international sport,
right.
But that's more the sport aspect of it, and kind of what you were saying, John. Like we're talking about cards here. Like what's a better investment? Not in the sport itself, what can grow more, in the next 10 years, but in cards. I think because there's a bigger pool of buyers and sellers here in North America, and like you both said, the hockey cards have been a tradition for a lot of collectors. It's been around with the rich history there. I think, and there's studs coming, and even vintage hockey. We're seeing growth in that area as well. You could see Gretzky cards, Bobby Orr cards, Gordie Howe cards, all sustaining their values. So I just think that'll grow over time as well too. So I'm going hockey for this choice. All right, last one. This is more looking further down the future. More likely to be the next big thing in the hobby. Digital NFT cards versus NIL cards. And NIL standing for name, image, likeness cards of college student players. So if people that aren't aware, especially with college basketball and football, you couldn't make profit off your own likeness until recently, I believe. And, as a result, there are these cards coming out with college student athletes from various manufacturers, including some of the big names. So yeah, which one do you think is going to be the next big thing in the hobby?
Next big thing in the hobby. Man. Yeah, I don't know if that name, image, likeness, like that whole concept will sell in the hobby. And I'm still bullish on, digital NFT cards because we just haven't scratched the surface yet, right? So for me, I believe in the technology of NFTs in general. So I'm going to back it up by saying digital NFTs over the name, image, likeness deal with NCAA and the whole deal. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair.
Can you guys expand on the name, image, likeness? So we're not talking like, national treasures, college and stuff like that. Are we talking beyond that? Like swimming athletes and
Yeah, it could be. And just say for NCAA college basketball players, like Tops or, any manufacturer could say, we're going to produce a special set of the top 50 college athletes in the sport. And then they'll just have their they'll be in their college uniform, but it won't be. Yeah, I know what you're saying about the collegiate stuff,
right?
Immaculate collegiate stuff. Yeah, it'll be different from that.
Okay.
You'll just see a lot more of these student athlete players because there's always potential, right, in these student athletes, and there's a lot of them, right? So it could be you could just potentially see a flood of these kind of cards,
right?
And it could be like state specific. I'm just thinking out loud, right? Yeah.
Okay. I think it's easy for me. It's going to be digital NFT. College, as much as there could be potential, I think the whole college concept just hasn't been working in the hobby space as much. So even though we might see name, image, likeness of certain sets or certain players that people have never seen before, I don't think that's going to overtake the potential of digital cards that have pro licensing, pro uniforms, and all of that jazz. I think that has more wide appeal and potential for like quick growth over the college stuff. So I'm going to pick digital NFT cards.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the argument for name, image, likeness cards is like, I'm just thinking of Trevor Lawrence, for example, because he's was a rookie last year. But just say he had that deal.
Oh,
there
right.
could be a card.
So we had autographs and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it could be his very first one before any of the, Panini Prism cards come out.
It's
or
like the RPA, but with his hair, a piece of his hair.
right. Who wouldn't want that? Come on. So like the early versions of the cards, autograph cards. Yeah. So that could be appealing, but I agree with you. I don't know if that's going to catch on, to tell you the truth. I think people are still going to wait for the sets that we're all familiar with, and then just see that as their number one rookie or prospect card. But, could be wrong. And we talked about digital NFT several months ago, and of course NFTs have died down quite a bit, like everything else. So I know people are off of it, but I still see the potential in it without getting too deep in it. The technology is still there. Right. I think it's going to work. And I just recently got onto Sorare, SORARE, and it's like a digital fantasy game, almost like a fantasy baseball, fantasy football, except you play with digital cards that you own. And then you could just set your lineup depending on the digital NFT cards that you have. And then, if you play with money, like there's a whole gambling aspect to it too. So like that's just one use case that I could see where NFTs become bigger, in the next several years. Who knows when? But yeah, still very, very early. But there's already potential in it. I see right now. All right, so it's a digital NFT card sweep. Okay, so that's in our new segment, More Likely To. We'll think of new categories to think of and maybe bring this back in a future episode. To wrap up this episode, we'll play our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And again, if you're a first-time listener, we do this every week where each of us picks 2 cards or 2 players, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, and as we do each week, we always ask Hyung to start things off for us.
All right, let's go other sports other than baseball. We're gonna go 2017 Optic Hollow of Mahomes, a PSA 10. Okay, last sold for $2,000. All right, versus a 2018 Prism Silver Luka PSA 10, which last sold for $2,150. So similar investment price. You got the staple Luka, Silver Prism versus an Optic Hollow of Mahomes PSA 10. Which one you guys going with $2,000?
Specifically designed for Clark.
And you, John. I know you're.
Yeah, no. Yeah, me too. Oh man. Okay.
I want both. That's the correct answer.
I know. As much as the Mahomes has come down solo, and we're both very, very interested, it still has the potential to be quite volatile, in a bad way as well. And I think Luka is a little bit different. I think it's a bit safer at $2,000. People are still supremely high in Luka, and I think Luka is even at the point where if he wins 1 or 2 series and he still doesn't make the championships there, I don't think people are going to be that off him. That's how special of a player he is. So I could see the money being a lot safer in the Luka. We like Luka and Mahomes. I like them both. But even from a collection standpoint, I love Luka. I love collecting Luka. I just wish I could collect more because everything of his is so darn expensive. So I'm gonna say Luka. It's a tough one, but I think Luka for that amount of money is a bit of a safer play. Now, not as volatile. If Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, I think the card could go a lot higher than perhaps if Luka wins the NBA championship. Perhaps I'm wrong about that, but I'm gonna pick Luka.
All right. So I have a Luka already, and I'm looking to get an Optic Hollow of Mahomes.
I thought that was going to be your answer. I already have one, so I'm going to go with the Optic Hollow of Mahomes.
But if I didn't have Luka, no, this is a good one. Which one would I go for first? I guess I already did it. I went for Luka first because I wanted both when I didn't have it. And the reason why I went for Luka personally is, for what John mentioned, I think it's just a safer play. I think the 2000 is, it just sees, I'm just seeing a good resistance at that level. And I think if Luka starts to play well, which I think he's going to start off well this season compared to last year when he was out of shape. You know, I'm just looking, you know, even ahead of a month or two, I think that has potential to rebound faster and more so than Mahomes optic hollow. But yeah, like the pop count is definitely interesting. I think the pop count you said is 660 for Mahomes, and then I think it's over 2,000 for Luka, right? But the other thing is, like, I think Luka Silver Prisms is kind of iconic in the modern era.
Right.
Like, that's the Prism card. You know, everyone kind of knows what it looks like. Where optic hollow, we already said we prefer that over the Silver Prism, but there's so many more buyers that would want the Silver Prism if they could afford it, you know, for Mahomes. So I'm going for the more iconic of the two, Luka's card.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go optic hollow. You know, just I just remember, like, you know, when both cards were astronomical, like I had a chance still, you know, buying Luka cards, but Mahomes, like, was ridiculous. Like, I think his prices were more ridiculous than Luka's, and they're eerily similar. That's why I brought it up earlier. But I just think that, you know, the opportunity to buy like a Mahomes optic hollow at this price, I don't think it's going to go down too much more unless he has a really, really bad start to the season. But even then, I think eventually long term, it will, like you said, that resistance for Luka at 2,000. I think Mahomes, his prices were just astronomical, and it's just harder to pull the trigger on Mahomes cards. So for me, it's like I've already had a Luka Silver many times, and it's like a whore going back and forth, kind of, like, you know what I mean? But never like that with the optic hollow of any Mahomes cards, right? So just long term, something that, like I said, the strategy is different now. So I'm gonna go Mahomes with a pick. I just love the optic hollow too. I think optic's so underrated, especially the on card autos. Yeah,
agreed
for sure. Can we like stop talking about the optic hollow, because I feel like people are going to start buying at this level, and I'm going to lose my chance again.
It's so nice.
Let me get one first, and then
I don't know, something about the 2017 too. You know, even Josh Allen's like optic hollow, so nice. You know, his auto too. Mahomes' auto is pretty not that great on most, but yeah. I'm a big auto guy. Like, the auto has to look good.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sure.
All right, fellas.
All right.
Better short-term investment duo. We're going Burrow, Herbert versus Josh Allen, Mahomes, sticking to the whole football season theme.
Better investment? That's
short-term investment duo. So you pick either Burrow and Herbert, or you're going to pick Josh Allen and Mahomes.
I'll go. It's similar to the question I asked about the Trevor Lawrence versus Josh Allen for me. And then in that case, I went for Josh Allen because I just believe in his talent more. But short term.
So let's say I'm going like this season.
Yeah, short term, I believe in Herbert and Burrow. It's like, obviously I believe in Allen and Mahomes as well. But if I believe in their short-term success, almost equally, essentially, like they could really do well for their respective teams, I'm taking the one that's a better buy right now. And Herbert and Burrow are a lot cheaper than Mahomes and Allen. And I think they could have one of those nice weekly spikes. Football's once a week. They have outstanding games. You could make a good profit on one of those. Those games where Herbert and Burrow just shine, right? And then the hype train can just follow. But yeah, so I'm going with Herbert and Burrow in this case.
The key is short term, right?
Short term.
Mahomes has a season. His prices are gonna go up. If Herbert, I don't know what's Herbert's silver prism at right now. Anybody know?
I'll look it
approximately.
I think Herbert's cards have been going up though, right? During this latest surge towards the season.
It kind of reminds me of the whole Zion.
2,800 last sold.
Too much. Way too much.
Yeah.
Well, Josh Allen's just as much, right? If not more.
Right.
Like
10K.
But that's because we talked about this. The silver prism is different, right? Like
the 2018, you mentioned earlier in the show. I think it was at Savvy Hot Hands from Instagram who wrote in one of our comments he mentioned that the 28 Prism football set that year there was only one silver prism per box, which made it rare.
Yeah, so super rare. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mahomes and
okay
and Josh Allen. It's just I just think I'm betting on who's gonna have the better seasons at this point.
Right.
You know, with which duo is gonna have the better season, and to me, Mahomes and Josh Allen, I think can go deep into the playoffs. Same with the other young studs as well, but I just think it's more likely that it's a safer investment with Josh Allen and Mahomes. So
Hyung needs to pay about 15,000 for those two cards.
But I wouldn't buy the silver
versus 6,000.
I wouldn't buy the silver though. Right? I would buy a different Josh Allen card, like an optic auto.
Right.
Maybe that thing is way more though. You know,
a third-year silver. How about that?
Yeah.
What's the tiebreaker?
I picked this for a reason because I went with Super Bowl favorites versus the lure of volatility. As you guys were talking, I mean, I'm still having trouble with my own question. It's a lot harder than I thought, but I'm gonna side with Hyung. I'm gonna go with Super Bowl favorites. I think it's a lot of money. Thankfully, Mahomes is save you a bit of money versus Josh Allen. But being the Super Bowl favorites, I think as much as Josh Allen is expensive, just like Herbert is becoming expensive, the money that you're spending potentially, I think, is going to be a lot safer than the other side. So, and I enjoy watching Mahomes and Josh Allen. So from a PC personal perspective, there's a bit of bias there. So I'm going to pick the Super Bowl favorites.
All right. Good one. All right. We'll end off the show with my pick one. And for the first time in a while, we really didn't talk a lot about baseball. So I'm bringing it back to baseball. And this is very specific. I was going to throw out Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani, the two top favorites to win the AL MVP. But I feel like we did that one before. So I chose the next two guys in the odds race to win AL MVP that are having really great seasons too. So I'm not sure you know who they are, but they are Jose Ramirez. I think he's number 3 behind Shohei. I think Aaron Judge is running away with it now. There's Jose Ramirez and then Yordan Alvarez, Hyung's boy Yordan Alvarez, who still gets no respect from the hobby.
Yordan gets no love, but
4th best odds to win AL MVP.
I think he's gonna not break some records, but he's gonna establish a really nice career, potential 500 home run career. Okay. Yordan Alvarez, I think his hitting ability is like one of the best in the game.
So I already know his.
You know what? Well, they both get like Jose Ramirez is the most underrated player on the other side, right?
He's the real deal.
He's super underrated. You know, he's 29 years old still. He has about a 40 WAR. So like, there's that. The only reason I don't fully believe in the longevity of Jose Ramirez, he's a small body type, which for me in baseball, it's great, but you know, he's 5'9", whatever he is, compared to a 6'5" frame in Yordan Alvarez, right? So, and Yordan Alvarez is, he's DHing, he is what he is. So I think he's gonna have a longer career, to be honest. And I think he's gonna do some damage with the Astros, and he's one of the best hitters in the game. And they both get no love, but at the same time, I think Yordan Alvarez is a beast. He's a 40-plus home run guy in 162 game average, right? And there's only a few guys in the big leagues that have that 162 game average. So I'm gonna go Yordan.
All right, and just to give context, although Hyung already chose Yordan, does his first Bowman Chrome rookie auto BGS 9.510 last sold for $350.
Wow, what a deal!
And Jose Ramirez, I chose his 2014 Topps Chrome rookie auto, also sold for about $350.
Okay.
Jose Ramirez also, I don't know if this is going to change your mind. He's more of a 5-tool player, more so than Yordan, right? But Yordan definitely has more power.
Has Yordan been fielding at all this year?
No, not really. Oh, right field. He played, I think, right field a bit. Yeah, he threw a couple guys out, I think.
Mostly DH size, I assume, right?
Okay.
Selling mostly it to
DH,
John.
Yeah.
Oh, this is...
We're making our case.
This is tough. I think the disrespect on Jose Ramirez, and at the beginning when we had Scotty B as our guest, I think he mentioned Jose. He's probably mentioned Jose Ramirez on both occasions. But I think the disrespect on Ramirez is big. It is real. Like, it's real disrespect in the hobby. And I don't know really what it's going to take other than like a Goldschmidt, like a supreme run of just unbelievable stats. So because of that, I got to go with the other side, Yordan Alvarez. I like Yordan Alvarez too, and I think he's killing it. But his disrespect is also real, but it's mostly due to the fact that he only plays one side of the ball, right? So either you got to be ridiculously amazing on the one side, or you're not going to get that respect. And I think Yordan is kind of balancing in between that right now. He's still got the early years, like years 1 to 3, kind of like that prospect potential. He's still kind of in that zone. So there's still some potential for his card to move, but he's quickly kind of getting into that disrespect zone. So I think Yordan by a hair because he still has that potential. But yeah, it's tough, man. Ramirez, as much as I want to pick him, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take for his cards to really explode. So it's going to be Yordan.
All right. To give you further context, their stats this year are Yordan's 78 runs, 31 homers, 82 RBIs, and 1 stolen base with a 397 OBP. And then Jose Ramirez has about the same number of runs, 74, 26 home runs, so only 5 behind Yordan this season, 106 RBIs, and 14 stolen bases with a 352 OBP. So definitely more of a 5-tool player, but
right.
I'm still going to go with Yordan because I just see out of the two, he probably has the best potential to gain a little bit of respect from the hobby with his homers. Jose Ramirez, like his rookie card is 2014, so he has 4 extra years and he's still not getting the respect. So I don't know what it's going to take at this point. All I'm saying with those stats is Jose Ramirez just deserves more hobby love. And we'll do what we can on this podcast to get it for him and Trae Young. So let's go, guys. Let's pump their cards this season. All right. With that, that's a wrap for episode 80 of Cards to the Moon. Thank you guys so much for listening and subscribing and giving us 5 stars. We really appreciate you guys tuning in week after week. And we can't wait for our next episode soon. See you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.